Now.
Now.
We're
Good
live.
morning. Ready? Okay. Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for August 4th, 2020. This is the 10 a.m. session, a little delayed. We will begin with the adjournments. The following cases have been adjourned. 2017-21 BZ, 3438 38th Street, Queens. Item number 2, 2019-269 BZ, 3425 Rumboats Avenue, the Bronx. Item number 3, 2019-271 BZ, 37 Mansion Avenue, Staten Island. Mansion Avenue, Staten Island. Item number 4, 4297 BZ, 93-20 Astoria Boulevard, Queens. The following cases are to be decided. Item number 5, 5506 BZ, 31 Nadine Street, Staten Island. Madam Chair. 5506 BZ, 31 Nadine.
Sorry, right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we were going to do the withdrawals next, but we didn't set it up like that. Okay, fine.
Oh, do you want to do the deferred withdrawals first?
Yeah, why don't we just do those? I know it's not really in that order. That's wrong.
Okay, so the next are, okay. Deferred decision 2019-19A, 107 Manet Street, Staten Island. And the following two cases are requested to be withdrawn. Item number 10, 2020-11A, 301 Park Avenue, Manhattan. And
Okay.
item, I'm sorry.
So I'm just, can we vote on those now? I don't remember what we do. Do we vote on them now? Yeah.
You could say motion to withdraw.
Yeah, so a motion to withdraw.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 11, 2019-268 BZ, 1938 Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn.
A motion to withdraw. This is all at their request, right? Without prejudice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, so decision items. Item number 5, 5506 BZ, 31 Nadine Street, Staten Island.
Okay, a cover letter was provided on July 28th. And for commissioners, I'm not sure if you noticed, there was a July 28th and an August 5th submission. And the July 28th addresses the findings and the parking demand for the new proposed use as was requested. And I was persuaded that it's not going to be an increase in the parking. Bubble plans were submitted that show changes to the parking layout and the on-site landscaping. I note from that bubbled information, there's less vegetation at the rear lot line. I don't know what the direction is because there's oddly no north arrow on the drawings. And I'm not sure that the absence of that extra bit of vegetation matters. I know that the parking layout was, and I see Commissioner Sheta, just a second. I know the parking layout was modified based on city planning review. So, and city planning is the one that looks at whether the parking complies with whatever section number I've forgotten about the number of trees and so on the site. But anyway, so I'd like to then, I'm going to go around the room. So Vice Chair Chanda.
Yes, I had no additional comments on this. I'm satisfied with all the additional documents that were provided.
Okay. And Commissioner Otley Brown.
I have no additional comments either.
And Commissioner Sheta.
This is Nadine Street, right? Item number 5?
Yeah,
Yes.
Nadine.
5506 BZ.
Okay, I haven't seen that submission that talks about the parking, but I did look at like a letter from Rampula that talks about the uniqueness and they are still there. I'm not sure if like anybody else seen that letter.
That's the same letter that talks about the parking. It's very brief. It just says the difference between lawyers and architects and whatever being in the, and engineers being in the building, because originally it was going to be the family's own business location where they have lawyers, architects, engineers all in one building. And we said that doesn't have much of a traffic demand. And this is going to be the corporate headquarters of this home health aid group that doesn't have clients come. It just is the headquarters, so it functions the same as a professional office. That's all that it said in that letter, which is the same thing that Mr. Rampulla said at the hearing, which is why we were willing to close it. I just wanted it memorialized in a document so that council can easily write up the resolution.
Okay. So I just want to mention that I have read in that letter some kind of language about the uniqueness and the need for pile foundation and the structural, like sophisticated structural system that's needed, designing the retaining walls and how they are needed to like handle some loading from the storm water and these kind of stuff. I haven't reviewed these kind of things, presuming that these were like looked at previously at the time the variance granted, and I'm fine with the application as it is right now. I mean the extension of the time.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Shabeta.
I'm satisfied with this application and there's nothing further from me.
Okay, great. So then I would like to make a motion to grant, and I don't think there are any conditions, no conditions.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Applications granted. Item number 6, 2017-99A, 3798 Railroad Avenue, Queens.
Sorry. This is kind of arcane behind the scenes, or not really behind the scenes because it's very just technical. There's been a lot of confusion about the tax lot numbers, and our deputy counsel, Chase Vine, observed some confusing documentation in an earlier PW1 submission to which the applicant responded on August 18th. I'm not sure if our council chance to take a look at this. I want to make sure he's okay with it. Because I can't say as I really understand the expediter's explanation, but it sounds like they do have tentative approval or something for lot 279. The issue is whether this approval will cover the entirety of the tax lot, because it's tax lot 279 and 280, and they had to be merged. Yeah, and the way that our resolution is going to read is that it's tax lot 279, if I have it correctly. And so the question was, would that leave 280 out? But my understanding is that they've successfully merged it, but that the BIZ website hasn't picked up on the changes, hence the conflict between what we believe we know and what we see on BIZ. So Chase, do you want to comment on that?
That's correct. The expediter's explanation wasn't exactly responsive to the question, but the applicant, the attorney, confirmed that the relief will be only for lot 279, and that is what the resolution will reflect.
So only for lot 279, but 279 is going to be the merged lot.
That is what they've represented to the board.
Okay, so you're comfortable. So in other words, you're comfortable with that. So maybe the resolution will say they represented to the board that lot 279, 280 were merged.
Yes, council's comfortable with this.
Okay. Okay. All right, good. So any other comments from anybody on this application? We were just looking to clean up the tax lots. All right. So then I would like to make a motion to grant, and we have conditions. The conditions are no vehicles shall be parked inside the structure. That's a fire department requirement. Maneuverability description, page 7 of the statement of facts, needs to be included in the resolutions. That's not a condition, that's an advice to our council when they put the package together. And also that the resolution should state that the board takes no position on whether the applicant has the right of access over the Review Avenue easement right-of-way. And in order to render its decision is relying entirely on statements by the applicant that such right exists. If you want me to email you that language, I can. Otherwise, just let me know. Okay, so based on that, I would like to make a motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta.
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
You're muted. There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Item number 7, 2019, 295 BZY, 428, 432 East 58th Street, Manhattan.
Okay. I don't think there were any submissions on this. Right, no submissions were required on this, so I'd like to make a motion to grant, no conditions.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 8, 2019 9BZ, 468 Targee Street, Staten Island.
Okay. Also, no submission was required for this. So are there any comments on this one? No? Everyone's nodding their head no. But I would like to make a note to our council that the resolution should note that the BSA takes no position on whether the floor area bonus in the underneath structural headroom, underneath the structural headroom in the roof is applicable in this case, as the attic is described as not occupiable and the floor area that they're taking the bonus from is located under the ceiling of the second floor. And I never know how DOB interprets this. Because sometimes we see it taking advantage of the attic, and in this case, there isn't any occupiable attic. And to note that the board's approval does not permit the enclosure of the porch to create additional floor area. Somebody needs to mute themselves, please. Okay. So the board does not permit the enclosure of the porch to create floor area. So that should be noted in the resolution. Okay, so any other comments on this one? Okay, so then I'd like to make a motion to grant on condition.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, continued hearing items. Item number 17, 12. 2796 BZ, 602, 604 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn.
Second. Let me skip. Okay. 60. Oops. Sorry.
These are continued hearing items.
Yeah, 602. Okay. All right. As requested, separate public assembly applications were filed for the eating and drinking establishment and for the PCE. We do have fire department letter of no objection, and ADA access is shown as being provided on the drawings by a separate shower room on the first floor. I just want to, for general information, this was originally marked incorrectly as having been closed. we didn't close this because we had open substantive issues. So, so that's why that was still not closed. Okay. So any other comments on this one? Okay. All right, then we can move on to the next.
Item number 13, 5830 BZ, 7313 Cooper Avenue, Queens.
Revised plans were provided, and it looks like from both plans and the 1940s tax photos that our council actually found and included in our folder, that the building has not changed in size since 1940s, so there is no proposal to enlarge it, which was part of our confusion. We didn't really know what was happening. However, this is an amendment to legalize the convenience store and reduce the number of service bays. So that's, for me, what gives us the kind of reasonable authority to ask for better improvements, because the use is changing from what was previously approved to allow for the convenience store. The drawings, proposed drawings, show 6 parking spaces for the convenience store, where according to the letter, the cover letter, 9, and according to the zoning calculations, 10 spaces would be required in a commercial district. This is an R4. If this were in a C11, the parking requirement for the small retail would be in parking category B1, would be 1 per 150 square feet. So 8 spaces would be required for the 1,258 square feet of convenience store. The previously approved drawing shows 8 spaces, but the cover letter indicates that 9 spaces were required, and I actually don't know where they got that from. I don't see plans or resolutions to support that statement. On the other side of the use on the site, the proposed use, the auto service is parking category C, and in a C11, that would be 1 space per 400 square feet, or 6 spaces for 2,317 square feet of service area. So we're being asked to waive the 3 spaces required of the prior approval, and I think we should discuss it because it's potentially really exacerbating the situation. When you have a convenience store, not everyone is going into the store from the pumps. Some people just drive in from the community on their way home or on the way to work, whatever it is, and grab something. So they're really reducing below what zoning would even allow for the convenience store. We had a number of comments at the last hearing, and I'm not sure that all were responded to, so I'm going to go through those. Just one second. Sorry, the trash enclosure has been moved forward in the plan, but still near the residential property line. I think there should be some further buffering of the trash enclosure from the residents. And as you know, for me, that is always landscaping. Although I do note the 9-foot high concrete block wall on that property line that was subsequently was stuccoed. There are residential windows on the 2nd and 3rd floors that look right down into the trash and the entire use there. The refuse is both from the convenience store, so perishable, and from the repair shop, so potentially kind of noxious because they throw away oily rags and things like that. They're not supposed to do, but that's what happens. My preference is landscaping all along the block wall to allow tall arbor vitae to create a dense high buffer. And in this case, there's actually room for it. The lumen levels are very high at the canopy still. And that faces the residential uses, I think. It's not so clear. I'd like to know whether it's visible across the property line. We had discussed lowering those lights or shielding them, and there's a statement in the cover letter that says they were lowered, but I don't know what that means because we don't have any, no discussion on that. The lumen spread diagram doesn't show 0 at the property line. It's above 0. So it's supposed to go to the property line and establish 0. I'd also like to understand the intersection has a crossing with, with the striped crossing area, and there's supposed to be a curb cut for pedestrians, a little ramp to go down to the crossing, and there's nothing there. And when I was kind of just reminding myself about this lot, I went onto Street View and I see 2 people, one of whom has a cane, and they're standing between the lamppost and the tree pit and trying to cross the street because there's no place to go down on a curb cut. So they're using this very strange place to cross where there's really no clearance for pedestrians. And I don't know if that's been exacerbated by the curb cut situation at this site, but there really does need to be a proper crossing there. It's really, and we talked about restoring the tree pit, but you can't, the tree in the tree pit, but you can't because there's no room between the curb cut that goes into the station and the lamppost that's right there. So, and the people are squished in an area that looks like about less than 3 feet when they're trying to cross. On the drawings, they should be dimensioning the curb cuts on the site plan, and the maneuverability plan seems to indicate that there is no need, and I think we talked about this last time, for the 33-foot wide curb cut on 73rd Place. And that curb cut was actually approved at something like 10'6". It's really hard to read drawings, but it was approved at much narrower. So why is it that wide in the first place? Applicant should clarify on the site plan the difference between the previously approved curb cuts and the proposed. And those were my comments. So Commissioner, Vice Chair Shanda? You're
Okay.
muted.
So yes, first of all, thank the applicant and our council for providing those drawings from 1940s that basically clarifies what I think was the basic. Can you hear me?
Yes, but those aren't drawings from 1940. You're saying the drawings and the photos from 1940. Okay.
Right,
okay.
Right. And I think that kind of addresses the basic threshold question of what was existing prior to 1961 and in terms of the expansion legality. So my questions are twofold. One is, I had raised this question at the last hearing also. The plan still does not show a demarcated safe pedestrian passageway that is at least 3 foot wide from the handicap parking all along to the convenience store. I would say basically there should be a pedestrian crosswalk that goes from the handicap parking area all the way to the convenience store, and also for somebody entering the convenience store from Cooper Avenue. That should be clearly demarcated in the plan. Maybe ballards should be put so that no vehicle encroaches this area, because it is very tight, even though the maneuverability plan shows that there is enough clearance. Just to make it amply clear for everybody, the distinction between the pedestrian zone and the non-pedestrian zone. I think that should be provided. With regards to the signage, the applicant has provided a revised signage analysis. However, when I look at the BSA drawing 007, the square footage in the existing sign pole elevation, the existing sign pole elevation that is does not correspond with the Cooper Avenue illuminated sign chart. So those need to be corrected, both in the sign analysis, in the zoning calculation, and also with the plan drawings. With regards to the curb cut, I think as Madam Chair, you mentioned, I would like the applicant to clarify what what was the approved curb cut widths as of the last BSA approval, and what is existing, and when were the last changes made? And if some of those changes were, like especially the pedestrian curb cut, they have no control on that. That is DOT's. If that has been there also right from the very beginning, not from the very beginning, at least for a very long period of time, and was that change made by DOT? So that is the other one. It's a it's a little convoluted intersection. And I think there were some recent changes that were made to that intersection of Cooper Avenue and 73rd to kind of streamline some of the travel movements. They've added some planting, greening area, which probably was not there. So I have a feeling some changes were made. And if the applicant could clarify that, that would be helpful. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to suggest that because we have such an easy connection to DOT, we reach out to DOT to take a look at that intersection, which is frankly dangerous in terms of pedestrians. There's kind of nowhere for them to walk. And if you're disabled, you can't get down. Like with a wheelchair, forget it, right? It forces you to cross into the curb cut, either where there's traffic or the curb cut on the other intersection, and then walk into the street to cross this way. So that's a thing. So anyway, DOT should look at it.
I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that. I'm just saying we should be careful when we are asking DOT to look at it. If these curb cuts, especially the curb cuts, vehicular entrance curb cuts, have been in existence as per any of the approved plans, then any changes that has been made to the pedestrian curb cut was a DOT's determination. And I want to be careful that we are not asking DOT to review these vehicular curb cuts that were there from prior approvals.
No, I'm asking the DOT look at what's clearly a dangerous intersection that doesn't have to do with this applicant. It has to do with the fact that there's no place.
Separate. Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
but on the other hand, that the curb cuts are bigger than any of the approved drawings that we received. So it seems like they were changed without coming to us.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, right. The other question I had also with regards to the convenience store, I think it would be helpful for the applicant, and we have heard it in previous other kind of cases, similar cases, where the applicant identified what percentage of patrons coming to this facility are just for the convenience store versus those who are coming primarily for servicing, and then while they're there, they apply the convenience. So what is the percentage difference? Because we have heard in various sites it differs, so it would be helpful if the applicant could clarify that.
That means doing a study of.
Because that would also respond to the question of what is the additional number of parking spaces that would be required. If most of them are coming for servicing or for gas pickup, and while they are doing that, and this is what Commissioner Otley Brown has often said also, then they go to the store to pick up something or to, it's not an additional traffic, it's just the existing traffic that is also using the service that is provided on site. So that would also respond to the question for how much of on-site parking would be required.
Okay, Commissioner Otley Brown.
I actually don't have a problem with the parking because you have 8 positions at the pumps that actually will be used by cars who are visiting the site to get gas, going in to pay for the gas, as well as possibly picking something up at the convenience store. So that those 8 positions to me are plenty. I think that convenience store trips for gas stations tend to be very quick. People dart in and out. Nobody is spending a long period of time shopping. I think probably the biggest holdup would be if you had to wait online to purchase something, and that's still like 4 or 5 minutes. So that's why I don't think that it's really going to have the parking is going to be an issue here at this site.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I agree with you on the proposal for landscaping. I definitely think that there needs to be a strip of landscaping alongside that concrete block wall, but I am happy that they did at least paint it. So that was one step in the right direction. And I agree with you with the lumen spread diagram. It is showing a 0.88 at the head of the parking spaces on the north side of the light. And that's 2 feet inside of the lot line, but there was no measurement taken at the lot line to see if that actually comes down or not. So I think they need to do more analysis there. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to be repetitive. I agree that the lighting need to be re-looked at. I believe if you look at the lights that are like shedding the most of the luminous spread close to the property line, you're going to see that like the price sign, it's kind of shielding these two lightings. So I believe if they go back the 2 feet, they should be okay. I don't think it's a big deal, but they need to just run some numbers and get them to us. The other thing, if you look at the photos submitted, I believe they are switching the photo IDs. 23 should be 22 and 22 should be 23. I did look at them more than one time, and that's what it appears. They made a mistake identifying these two pictures. In 22, Cooper Ave shows up. It shouldn't be there. And if you look at 23, that should be 22. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I apologize. The enclosure. I hear you, Chair, talking about the planting strip next to the property line. I believe if they do rotate, even if you put planting, considering somebody's standing in the window at the second floor, I believe the enclosure at its current location shown in the plans gonna be feasible from the second floor. So I would say if they rotate it 90 degrees and they try to like make it closer to the planting a little bit, that would help shielding, make it like behind the line of sight. So it's not gonna be feasible from the second floor.
So you're saying rotate it so that the opening is perpendicular?
Yeah, and instead of it's 5 by 8 and you see the 5 is parallel to the property line, if they can rotate it, I'm not sure, I believe that the space there permits that. If they can make the 5 perpendicular to the property line and make the 8 parallel to it and make the 2 doors in the long side, not that short side, and try to push it a little bit towards the planting. If somebody is on the second floor and he looks to the like the car shop lot, he's not going to be able to see it. But if you make it the way it looks right now with like 6 feet tall fence, I believe if I'm standing on the second floor, I'm still going to be able to see that crash enclosure.
Okay. Okay. We have one application coming up later where you see the results of doing a really good planting job with arbor vitae, where they grow to like 20 feet when there's enough of a purchase in them. And so I see that and I'm like, oh my God, it's totally possible. Look at that. And so that's what I'm looking at, where it grows so high that when people look out of their windows up there, they see trees. They don't even see the gas station. So
if it's 20 feet, I believe it would be shielding that, but I'm afraid that it's probably at max 10 feet. And if it is,
yeah,
it's going to be feasible.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Shibeta.
Thank you, Chair. So my comments are limited to the lumen level being high, and I think it should be 0 on the lot line. I agree with the remaining commissioners. I agree with the arborvitae planting. I don't know if it gets to 20 feet, but the bigger the better, in my opinion, with that. So I'm sure that someone could give us some information on that. I did see what you saw, Chair, with regard to the man with the cane crossing the street. And I do believe that there should be a curb cut there. And I just want to, I do want to have a confirmation of whether or not there's the convenience store is going to remain a food mart. It wasn't very specific as it's going to stay that particular store. So I'd like to hear that. With regard to the parking, I agree with Commissioner Otley Brown. Depending on, of course, on what kind of convenience store this is, I think it's probably going to be in and out. So I really don't have anything further on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Shanda, you had your hand up before. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, actually, you mentioned it that a case that is going to come up which has the landscaping. So I was going to mention that. Also, similarly with the lumen thing, we have another case coming up, which I think has a pretty interesting way of analyzing the lumen. And that is something also can be exercised here.
So that case, which we'll talk about whenever it comes up later, is actually using almost to the letter, but I think also using a very cleverly understood system, laying a grid on top of the site and then locating the test locations, the monitoring according to the grid, and then the lights off, so everything's zero. And then you can find out whether there's a light source from a neighbor, so that's not your fault. And then turning the lights on and measuring. It's like so super clear, excellent. So in case the applicants here aren't present during the hearing when we're talking about that case, they should be reaching out to their project manager to get ultimately a copy of that excellently done lighting study. So, which we'll talk about later. Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Item number 14, 82586 BZ, 1703 Bronxdale Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay. At the previous hearing in March of this year, it became apparent that the board had not seen a submission that had either been made or attempted to be made in October or at least in late 2019, because I'm not sure when it was attempted, in response to the notice of comments. So this board was actually reviewing old materials and didn't know it. Those materials that were attempted to be submitted were resubmitted now, some with updates to respond to our comments at the hearing in March. That's what we've reviewed for this hearing, just to kind of bring us up to date. Proof of continuous use since the expiration of the variance in 2017 was provided. That was one of the requests in the notice of comments. This is a legalization since all changes have been made, apparently pursuant to DOB permits that didn't seem to notice that it's a BSA action. And the new spaces are now occupied as described since 2017, give or take several months, when they're not allowed to hold banquets. We also learned that the parking lot never provided, the parking lot across the street never provided the number of spaces that were required by the variance, and in fact has a 1983 certificate of occupancy that doesn't comport with the BSA grant. So that's surprising. The parking lot is the same ownership, so that makes it a easier. Often we sort of make concessions for not being in common ownership, but can you hear me? Yes, okay. We often make concessions for it not being in common ownership, even though the zoning resolution is very clear that says off-site parking has to be held in common ownership with the site to which it's accessory. So in this case, it is. But we should have, because of the value of property, maybe not today because of the pressed values, but in the future because of the value of property for development, we should have a restrictive declaration recorded against both properties that formalizes that arrangement, that there's required parking on that site. so that the lot itself cannot be sold off without maintaining parking on it, or without the banquet facility obtaining another site to accommodate the parking. But we've seen, not often, but we've seen sites that are sort of hampered by an existing like covenant that says you must provide the parking on site. So they design the building around the parking on site, and that just totally works. So I think that should be in a restrictive declaration. A financial analysis was provided in support of the expanded floor area for the banquet hall use, which I'll leave to Commissioner Otley Brown for commenting on. Revised plans were provided. They include the parking plan of the site across the street, which shows only 65 at-grade spaces, even though 75 were required. The 65 spaces at grade, I believe, instead of just treating them like just leave it alone, should be converted to stackers to increase the space count to meet demand and to obviate the need for a parking reduction, or let's just say reduce it significantly or obviate the need. This is an R5 zoning district, so of course a banquet facility is not permitted in the district. And if we were to apply a C11 parking regulation to it, it requires 1 space per 4 persons of rated capacity. That's a lot, right? So that would be 252 parking spaces if this were a new case. But if it were an enlargement, which is normally how it works, right? You take a non-conforming use, which this was a pre-61 non-conforming use. So only the new extension has to comply with the current parking regulations. So if we are to apply the incremental difference between the original 75 spaces approved and the 158 persons proposed, there would be an increase of 40 spaces that are required. So if you were to put all of these parking on stackers, you would basically meet the requirements of zoning. The parking study indicates that the off-site parking lot isn't used much. And I'd like to know why not. It's directly across the street and it's valet parking. So if you're arriving in your pretty dress and so on, you would drive up to the front of the building and presumably the valet would take it across the street and you don't have to think about anything. So the question is it free? Because it should be free to customers. And is it made clear to visitors who attend this that there's free valet parking across the street? When I did a Google search about this site, people spoke highly of the catering establishment, but said that that parking is scarce. So, and then some mentioned, but there's valet across the street, so no issue. So I'm not really understanding the statement that the parking lot isn't used, like why? The cover letter for the recent submission states that peak hours are on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but the parking study was conducted on a Tuesday and a Saturday, and I don't understand that. So if the parking analyst could explain that to us. And those are my comments. Commissioner, Vice Chair Shanda?
I think my biggest concern was the analysis was done, I think, in June of this year. So this is like not the right time to do a parking demand analysis at all to determine a typical normal facility. So it doesn't matter whether it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Saturday. June 2020 in the time of COVID is not the right time to do any parking assessment. So I definitely would need to see a much more detailed analysis of the parking to determine whether there is ample space available on site. The utilization of the parking spaces on the site across the street, and also what is the on-street parking demand, because again, right now is not a good time to do an analysis of the on-street parking demand. So all of that, I think this analysis is not adequate to make that justification. But other than that, the revised plan, it seems like a good part of it is just utilization of the existing mezzanine spaces, the existing spaces for storage. And I'm not sure even though there is an increase in per capacity, but it seems it's the same facility that is just providing an additional amenity, like you're providing an additional bridal suite. So it's not increasing the number of people per se, but it's just providing an additional amenity. And that may, in my opinion, may sway my understanding of how much of parking that would be needed apart from the zoning analysis point of view.
I just want to interrupt though. Remember, we didn't review the up-to-date materials in the first hearing in March. The parking study was done in 2019. I see Tracy's hand up, and when I saw it up, I'm like, what am I forgetting? And then I was reading the notes from the parking study, so I'm going to just give Tracy the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to confirm that the parking study, I believe, was done in 2019. And then they submitted it earlier in the year. And then I had asked them to add the year because I knew this would be an issue. So yeah, it's 2019.
And then thank you, Tracy. And then if I just read it, because that's why I cut and pasted one little paragraph from it. And it said, on June 13th, the catering facility held 4 parties in separate rooms. So I'm reading that and I'm like, really? They held 4 parties and there were 540 guests that attended? Probably not. So, okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So did you want to modify your comment about the parking analysis?
Well, in that case, if it was done in 2019, I will then go back to why then, as you mentioned, the typical peak days were not picked for the analysis and why a non-peak day was used for analysis.
Right, okay. And with respect to the expansion, it's not so much the expansion that they're using the mezzanine and so on for sort of back of the house activities. Their request, because the condition of approval limited the number of occupants to 850 people in the building. And now they're requesting an increase to 1,008 people. So whatever changes they're making to the internal layout is enabling them to add 200, whatever that is, 150 people or something like that, right? So that's okay. Where then rated capacity that determines the number of parking spaces.
Okay. I then take back my comment.
Okay. Commissioner Otley-Brown.
Hi, I looked through the newest information and I'm pleased that they actually had a whole discussion about the findings, and I'm convinced by the uniqueness about the incompatibility of having an apartment on top of a catering facility. I mean, anybody could come to that conclusion that nobody's going to rent this. Okay, right. It's just too noisy. So that being said, the financials were pretty straightforward. The only issue I have, and this is something more that I might just need my memory refreshed, this is a legalization. And because it's a legalization, the as of right is the existing. And the proposed is, well, I mean, the as of right is what was, and the proposed is what's existing. Given that, why is there a whole pile of soft costs added into the analysis? It should be that the proposed, it's in place, there shouldn't be all of the soft costs. And I think that they can make the case without soft costs. So it could be, and it's been a while since I've actually done a legalization, so I don't know if we allow the soft costs to be included, but it certainly isn't necessary. You can make the case that the as of right or pre-existing does not work without it. Okay, so that would be my only comment. Other than that, I feel it's pretty straightforward. However, I do agree with you as concerns, sorry, that's Hendrix, as concerns, hey, cut it out. As concerns the, sorry about that, the character, they definitely do need to provide more parking across the street. So in that case, I do agree with the chair. That's it for me.
Hendrik understand when you say cut it out, that's, you're speaking to him?
Yeah, he shut up.
Wow. Okay.
It's the tone.
Commissioner Sheta, thank you.
We can mute him. Okay, I don't want to be repetitive. If you're coming to us asking for increasing the permitted capacity from 850 to above 1,000, you should be basing your parking demand on like a group of events that shows us not only that the parking is fine, but you need to increase your capacity as well. So if you got 4 parties on June 13, even if it's 2019, and the total number of people is just 400 or 500, 540, so why do you need to increase the capacity? If you need to increase the capacity, show us parking that's based on something close to that capacity you want to increase to. And this is my major comments. Regarding the soft cost, I tell you this, sometimes I feel, and this is not a joke, I feel like the soft cost just jumps in. Like I've seen tons of soft cost on different applications that I believe they have to stop that on this application and on other applications as well. Soft cost is like the item that being used to like trick the financials on every single application. I've seen soft cost actually impacted by the shape of the site, which is amazing for me. It's like if I'm a consultant and I'm gonna bid to like supervise and inspect a project, it's gonna make a huge difference for my staff engineer whether this site is trapezoidal or rectangular. Come on.
Right.
Can I just
Right.
say one thing? In this case, the soft costs don't have to do with construction costs. It has to do with a construction loan interest, construction loan legal, and real property tax during the construction period. And that's why I was raising concern about it being in here, because there is no construction period because it's already been done. So because there's no construction period and all the work has been done, there's no construction loan interest, no construction period, no real property taxes during construction period, and no commercial brokerage. So that stuff I feel could be taken out and you can still make the case. It still doesn't work with the given cap rates. And so they should just pull it out.
Yeah,
Or, you know, I mean, or to say that I've already done the analysis and I see it doesn't work anyway. And so telling them to take it out would apply to future cases.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, understood.
For this situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, totally understood. But what I said is it's like a tradition. Like every single cost estimate or like a financial report, you look at it, you see just like soft cost dumped in, and you see no reason for that. It's kind of, you know,
Okay.
frustrating because it takes times and back and forth between us and between the financial analysts.
So I would like to have a longer discussion about this, but probably not today where we're an hour behind, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, you want to move on to Commissioner Shibeta?
Shibeta.
You already, yeah.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Chair. I too share the concerns about the parking study and how the parking study is only for, I believe it was 530 people, or there were 4 parties. I believe the total occupancy was 530. I need them to explain how they believe this is relevant or would be typical of this new maximum occupancy. With regard to the extension, I'm satisfied with the findings. I do think the applicant should respond to Commissioner Otley-Brown's with regarding to the soft costs and whether they're applicable here. Although I think that they should just pull them out for now because I don't believe they're necessary in making findings.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right.
Next item, item number 15, 5597 BZ, 7636 164th Street, Queens.
I actually didn't see proof of continuous use, which I believe we asked about at the last hearing. Since the expiration was in 2017 and the request is for a waiver of our rules under 1-07.03B2, which requires proof of continuous use. The landscaping shown in the photos, this was the ideal model, actually looks really good and creates a dense and very attractive residential quality buffer between this use and residential neighbors, with a broad distance of 15 feet between the residential property line and the lush tall arbor vitae, which are located at critical locations. I have to say the landscaping is really well done in that the tall trees are right up, are as close to the use under consideration here as possible. And then there's this grassy area into which are located low shrubs. And then there's this really nice fence, actually 2 kinds of really nice fence. And one of the fences is this open picket fence, metal picket, onto which grows these beautiful vines, right? It shows that you can do this thing. So, so the pushback that we get from applicants, oh, don't make me 3 feet, 4 feet. This is 15 feet and it changes entirely the character of this use with respect to the neighboring residences. It's like heartwarming, I have to say. The site plan, though, should indicate that the area between the trees and the fence is grassy because it doesn't say anything. And that's for the benefit of future boards to know what was expected. I also, so what I didn't find is the trash enclosure on the site plan, nor the details for it. They didn't give us photos of everything. They gave us photos of that landscaped area, but not sort of the a little bit of the back of the house, active house area. We asked about the curb cut that is blocked by vehicles and whether it should be closed. The photographs they gave us was what they called a no parking site, but I know that both the satellite imagery and some of the commissioners' visits indicated that there were a lot of cars on the site always blocking that curb cut over there. So why not eliminate it? I do want to say we should get photos of the areas adjacent to the building that are shown in satellite imagery filled with tires and miscellaneous materials. There was recently submitted photos that were titled "No Parking Photographs." And if you look at it in the distance, it appears to show that a fence and a gate was installed that is attached to the side of the building to maybe conceal that kind of stored stuff. So that's not shown on the drawings at all. What goes on behind there, is that where the trash enclosure is? They need to explain that and show it on the drawing. And that was there were my comments. Vice Chair Shanda? You're muted.
So regarding your question about the trash enclosure, yes, you're right that I had to search through the drawings to see where the trash enclosure is. It is next to the parking area that is numbered 17. the triangular piece. And but as you pointed out in the drawing, it shows it's an open space and it tucked away in the corner. But the photo that's been provided, it seems there is a gate in front of it. So somewhere there is a miss. So both need to be coordinated, the existing built condition and what is being shown on the plan. The applicant did show that they have striped the parking spaces and they are committed to removing the asphalt area along the sidewalk. I don't know how long that will take to have it removed and replace that with the material that one sees on city sidewalk. So I would recommend that we have a little bit of a belts and suspender kind of situation where we have parking spaces right up to the front lot line. For example, parking space number 13 and 10, there is that kind of a triangular pentagonal shape kind of space that's in front. That can become a parking space that may result in an encroachment of vehicles parking right up to the front lot line. So to prevent such encroachment, I would recommend that, yeah, beyond the property line. So where that 160.38 BL is written in the drawing, I'm looking at drawing A1. We should have bollards and cross hatching to make it very clear that that's not an area where any parking can happen. Similarly, where the vehicles are parked in a diagonal on 6 and 2, there are these little triangular portion that can also become an area for people may park right up to the property line, and next thing you know, the car is jutting onto the front. So we should have bollards along those also to prevent any vehicular encroachment. And it could be just a human error. By mistake, someone parks it. So this is just to make it absolutely clear that this is the area within which the parking has to be contained along the front lot line. Same thing with 16, 15, and 14.
Oh, so it's 13, 10, 6 to 16 and 14?
Yeah, all of those parking spaces that in some way or the other are fronting along the front lot line. So along those, there should be a bollard, there should be bollards provided to make sure the vehicles do not encroach beyond the front lot line.
Yeah, 14, 15, 16 or head in onto that. 13.
That you can't, because the curb cut doesn't let you do that. So you're almost entering it and they're backing into 14, 15, 16. You shouldn't be heading onto it because then you're utilizing the sidewalk for that maneuverability.
No, what I meant is it's either head in or back in parking
okay.
property line. So that's obvious. There should be bollards there. Yeah, okay.
Same thing by number 22, by number 6, and by 13 and 10.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, anything else?
No, and I agree with you on the trash enclosure. They need to provide more detail as to how that is being enclosed and what's happening behind that fenced area.
Okay, great. Commissioner Otley Brown?
You're muted.
You're muted, Commissioner Otley Brown.
I love the photos of the landscaping. It's in great condition, so I'm really pleased with that. And the signage is still not broken down by frontage, but I'm wondering if that's because there's only one illuminated sign. I'm not quite sure, because I was looking at the plans and there's one AC Delco sign that says that's existing illuminated, and that could be why it isn't by frontage, because it really is only one. So if they could just address that, that'd be great.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further on this.
And Commissioner Shibeta?
Thank you, Chair. I had the same comments with the trash enclosure. I was satisfied with the landscaping. I appreciate Commissioner Vice Chair Shanda's comment on the ballards. I was wondering if the board would be satisfied with rather than ballards, something a little lower that would be more common in parking garages. So the cars will stop there as opposed to crossing over. Sometimes bollards can be a little unsightly, but those are my comments.
All right, what do you mean, like in a chain or something? Like, what do you mean?
Like,
Wheel stops?
yeah, wheel stops.
Oh. Well, wheel stops, as long as they're far enough back from the property line, work, because the car doesn't hang over the property line, right? Why are bollards unsightly?
Well, for one, I don't know if they're necessarily unsightly. Perhaps that wasn't the best word to use, but I think that wheel stops are probably more cost efficient and serve the same purpose. But I'm not entirely opposed to bollards.
Okay.
I just think it's a lot more. It seems a little cluttery, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it's true that bollards require much more construction because you have to insert them with little footings and the whole thing. Whereas a wheel stop, you go to the store, you buy a wheel stop, and ideally you're using some kind of a bolt to hold it in place. But other than that, you don't have to like put in a footing. So yeah.
I'm okay with
Right,
either.
Martha?
Only thing is that sometimes I've seen wheel stop over time, they start moving.
That's because they just drop them down. So these have to be fixed wheels.
Fixed to the, yeah. Okay.
Where they
That's
bolt
fine.
them down to the concrete. Okay.
Yeah.
Fixed wheel stops. Okay. All right. Anybody else last minute? No? Okay.
Item number 16, 24503BZ, 16011 Willets Point Boulevard, Queens.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. This case has been going on, and the longer we are at it, the more we learn from other sites about how disruptive it can be to live next door to a drive-through restaurant. The last submission shows a section through an assumed menu board output that is not a field measurement, but a projected laboratory one. This approach does disservice to the possible actual field conditions and shows, for unknown reasons, the speaker's projection range far above the height of the fence at 52 decibels, when the speakers could include a voice shield that reduces the range of the projection to the car's window. I don't understand why these speakers are just kind of given free rein, sort of. There is a reliance on the seeker manual for support, which is not the applicable standard here. The standard here is whether this is affecting the neighbors in any negative way and therefore should not be considered. And we have history, I think it's on this site, where the board at the time decided that this would be too disruptive of a use. The sound emanating from the transactions at the menu board should never exceed ambient levels on the residential property and should not be perceptible on that property with an open window condition or sitting on a lounge chair in the yard. So you can't rely on it getting stopped by the wall. I'm allowed to open my window on my own property and not hear the order of the day. And now, of course, based on another application, we learn about the noise from the car speakers themselves and the patrons' loud voices, often trying to overcome the radios that they're playing in their own cars. So it means the ambient noise levels are increased to deafening levels. And now you're saying the speaker has to overcome the ambient levels, and then it's, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you speak up, etc., like that. So, and from the submitted general non-site specific technical report, the potential for reflected sound when a building wall is within 100 feet of the speaker is now added into the conversation that we haven't had before, and we actually don't know what the effect of that is. I note that also the speed bump was an ongoing subject in every renewal application since the initial grant. And it appears that the applicant either complied with it and took it out or never complied with it. So this doesn't give me great confidence about this operator. I know that and I don't know if we ever got an answer on the hours of operation of the drive-through, but the granting, or of the proposed drive-through, but the granting resolution limited the hours to Sunday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., and Friday and Saturday from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. And so with what we've learned about noise that's coming from the cars themselves as opposed to the menu board, I really do recommend that the hours be reduced to a maximum of 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends, really at the very latest. If it were me, living next door, I actually would want it to be earlier, because let's just say you have kids asleep in the house or something and they're still hearing that. And also a critical question, and I don't find anything in my notes or in any of the submissions that resolves the question that I brought up a couple of hearings ago, which is, this is a site that has a split lot condition, and the drive-through is most likely, certainly located, it's actually more than likely, it says it on the drawings, is located in the R32. So the authority to grant it through in the R32. And I don't see that the initial granting resolution ever granted a special permit pursuant to either 73-42 or 7352, which moves the district boundary line over by up to 25 feet. The initial application way back in the 80s, where I believe in this case the board rejected the application because it found that there wasn't enough room on the site to handle a drive-through. At that time, the application was to move the district boundary line. And then when the application came back 15 years later, it did include, as far as I could tell, permit. So the district boundary line, to my understanding, is firmly right there in the center of the drive-through. So, or even further. So so the next thing is, it's likely that this use was legal non-conforming. When I looked up tax map data, I found a 1966 tax map that showed that the site was the same size as it is today. The zoning hasn't changed since 1961. So the zoning, the commercial overlay's been there from the beginning. So if the use pre-existed 1961, don't know the answer to that. Because when I looked for tax map photos, I only found 1988 photos. I couldn't find any 1940 photos. So I don't know if there's proof that this is a pre-existing non-conforming use in the residence district, right? But my question, and this is something for the applicant's counsel to answer and our own counsel to consider, whether we have the authority to grant this special permit that applies only in C districts and only in certain C districts, where you've got a portion of the site that's non-conforming sitting in an R district. And I note really that the statement of facts that were submitted, the last one was in November of 2019, doesn't actually mention the split lot conditions or how that might not be applicable in this particular case. It just ignores it. And I know I raised it at a prior hearing and it just seems to have gone unanswered because maybe they don't know how to deal with the answer, or maybe the answer is simple and I don't have any notes for us answering it. But assuming we can do all of this, let's just say there's a reason why we could actually grant this in the R32. The issues with this case are both the impact on traffic and pedestrians and the noise. And the community board was very, very concerned about certainly the traffic impact and pedestrian impact. And since the drive-through as now designed and the menu board as now intended are not actually installed, nor is the acoustical separation and planting installed, I'm thinking that what we should do, and we discussed this a couple of hearings ago, is consider closing this for a vote, but that we have the applicant return essentially 1 year from the time that operations begin with this new layout, so that we can check on compliance and on how the operation is working, given the traffic and pedestrian concerns, which were significant. So that would, 1 year from operations might make it 1.5 years or 2 years. We had talked about a short lease a long time ago in these hearings. So I give it to Vice Chair Shanda.
I have the only thing I would add, given what we have gathered from some of the other cases, is that maybe they should put up a sign right by the menu board and where the vehicles are parked within the property line that says turn your radio off or something like that, which also reduces some of the ambient noise that would be coming from the vehicles in the driveway or waiting for pickup.
Okay. Commissioner Watley Brown.
I have no comments.
Okay. Commissioner Shaita.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I share the same comment from the Vice Chair regarding the sign, just to make sure that the it's not gonna be a race between the AVC system and whoever's honking or putting loud music. So the louder the music from the car is, the louder the output, the outbound voice from the system, the menu board is. But honestly, I feel like a little bit frustrated about this application, because I don't know why, if you wanna, I don't know how to explain this. If somebody asked me, can you prove this to me? And I have the ability to go directly to it and prove it to him on the spot, I would do that. Why I would go to like a very different situation and try to like make a simulation? Why did you measure away from the site? We're asking you to prove it to us that the noise coming from this specific menu board is not impacting the neighbors, period. As simple as that. Why would you measure like somewhere else? Why would you go to the manufacturer and get like tons of charts and try to do like a complicated physics analysis to prove it to us that, yes, this neighbor is not gonna be impacted? I can't understand it. And I'm not willing to take this kind of analysis, because it's going to be a precedent. If we take that and later on we ask like for actual field measurements, site-specific measurements, like applicants may like use this as an example, and by taking that, they probably going to be able to like just do some analysis and submit them to us, and we're not going to be able to say no, go to that specific site, do a site-specific study to prove it to us. So
I want to cut that concern off. We now have an administrative notice, and it says this is
I was about actually to talk about that. Yes.
Yeah, but it
Yes,
says
thank you.
this is how you do the lighting, and this is how you do the sound readings. This case has been around for a very long time, and we've been struggling with them to try to get some answers, and they've had so much trouble even figuring out what a section looks like and so on. And I don't want to drag this one on, but I absolutely agree with you that the idea, and you know, the more I read from that engineer's report, which is very general, where he can't make any representations because in Iowa they do it this way, and in Florida they do it this way, and in New York and that way, therefore he can't make any representations about whether or not this would be disturbing. That gave me a lot of information. He's not willing to stand by the equipment and say the equipment will not cause concern for a nearby neighbor. And then he says, what about a building that's within 100 feet? Our building's 45 feet away. I'm much more concerned now because the house is 45 feet away. So this is the nature of these applications, where the longer they drag it on and they don't give us the answers we need, the more time we have to find things out, either from their
Are we losing Marjorie?
we see it already. What?
Is that me or is it Marjorie?
No,
No,
Madam
it's
Chair, we
Marjorie.
couldn't hear your last bit. We couldn't hear what you said at the last part.
So, you heard me talking, okay, let me switch to another internet. Any better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying is the longer, and maybe you heard this part, the longer an application gets dragged on because of lack of adequate response to our direction, the more time there is for us to learn things, sometimes ironically from their own consultants and sometimes from other people's consultants. And then it makes the case more complicated because now we have more things to question. But what I would say is that we do have the administrative notice. We do have now a beautiful example in a later case of someone
Yeah.
conforming to it, to the letter. And so that will be our standard. And we will just say to any subsequent applicant, we don't want to see this, give us this. And then they can't say, we don't understand how to draw a section. We don't know what you mean by propagation horizontally and vertically, which is very impossible for me to
And
understand.
the amazing thing is the other guy did what he did without us asking him to do it. He actually, I believe that's what happened. He read the notice and he just applied it. This applicant, we've been discussing this for like too many hearings now.
Yes,
And still, so I don't understand what is the point here.
right. Okay. All right. Having vented enough, let's move on. So,
Commissioner Shabeta?
Shabeta, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the comments that were made from you, Chair, and from the Vice Chair, and also from Commissioner Sheta. Considering what we've learned from other cases and this community board's concerns, I wouldn't be comfortable with anything longer than a year as far as their return date.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to, Madam Chair, we discussed, recall 2019-19A 109 Manet Street, Staten Island, that we're deferring the decision because we're waiting for DEP.
Yeah, but I just want to, I'm sorry, I meant to say this. We can't vote on this because we're missing the DEP sign off and the borough president's street status letter. And on the community board issue, both the applicant and our deputy director reached out to the community and forwarded them revised or new materials, and we hadn't heard back from them. Commissioner Shabeta had asked about the community board at the last hearing. We did receive this morning, or something. We did receive something. Now I'm confused about the date. It says August 17th, but I just showed up.
That was my email. I just was adding it to the record. It was from DEP communicating with Todd. I had Todd and his people communicating. And so the engineer, I believe, has to respond back. He wasn't available to respond back to this question.
No, but you mean the applicant's engineer?
Engineer, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm going to read the email. So it was dated August 17th, and from DEP to actually Todd Dale and CC Tony Matthias. And it says, good afternoon, the water services through easement is not acceptable. Please refer to chapter 20-03. All water services shall be installed in straight line from the main to the main control valve within the building. And so it gives instructions to the applicant. So there's water service issues, but we don't also have our usual DEP sign off from them. And we always need in these cases the borough president's statement about the street status. So that's what's missing from the application. Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Dale, for having skipped that. Okay.
Okay, so that concludes the public review session. Will now commence with the public hearing for August 24th, 2020.
And just for commissioners' information, we started this hearing at 11, so we'll take a break at 1 and we'll decide how long it is, and we'll just try to finish everything today. But if we don't, the cases that we're not finishing today, we have tomorrow we have a hearing with not a lot of cases on it. If we finish up quickly, we can attach these missed cases to that hearing. Okay.
Okay, we're live? Okay, so
Yeah.
the continued hearing case, item number 12, 2796 BZ 602 604 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. So Angelo Costa, is that, yeah, you can speak when you can hear us. You have to unmute yourself though. What's that?
Someone got background noise that's,
So Mr. Costa, can you hear us? He's still muted. Okay, Ms. Batan is there. Can you unmute yourself and speak, please?
Sorry, it crashed on me. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And then Angelo Costa is also the architect.
Sorry. We're getting feedback. Maybe Mr. Costa has his YouTube video on, so please turn it off and mute yourself because we can't hear anything while it's on. Okay. Ms. Batan, you want to continue?
Okay, so Fan
okay, she has to be,
Yeah.
well, there's nothing to say really. Okay.
all right, wait. Okay, so do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do. I hear Angelo in the background. I mean, I think there are basically the two issues from the last hearing we addressed. The fire department has no more, as mentioned at the review session, the fire department does not have any objection to this application due to the public assembly permits that were filed for. And the proposed plans show accessibility on the first one.
I think we moved him, or he is muted, I guess. Okay, thank you. So I don't think we had any other issues and the submission was already made. So I'd like to make a motion to close this.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, next item is 5830 BZ 7313 Cooper Avenue, Queens.
Okay, this is Nazir Kazada.
Yeah.
I don't see, well, we have some phone numbers in. Let me see, we do have a registration list. Can you tell from,
212-380-1543 is Nazir Kazanda.
I don't
Yes.
see anyone signed
We
in
have-
number.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Got him.
Okay. Mr. Cassandra, are you there?
Speak when you can
Unmute.
unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, please, Mr. Cassandra.
And turn off your YouTube video, which may be why it's taking a while for him to respond. Oh, I think we lost him.
Nazir, are you here? Oh, unmute, Mr. Nazir. Or whoever is appearing. Is it Nazir himself? Usually it's that woman.
So had
Hello?
Iwa Card.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, please state your name.
Hi. My name is Diwakar Gupta. My name is Diwakar Gupta.
Okay, you're on a phone that's identified as Nazir Khanzada, is that correct?
Yeah, he's coming in here right now.
Okay, go ahead. Are you going to handle this?
Are you both speaking?
Yes, we will both be speaking.
Okay, so where is he?
Sorry, he's here.
I
Here.
need you to,
Together.
I need to swear you in. Let's go. Sorry.
Okay, let's go.
Good morning, how are you?
Okay, good morning. How are you? Raise your right hands, please.
Okay.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed and respond to the board's comments.
Okay.
Have a seat.
So we listened to the review session earlier today.
We cannot hear you at all. You need
Can
to,
you raise the volume on your computer and turn off your YouTube if you have that on?
Okay, can you hear us better now?
Yes.
Okay. We listened to the review session earlier this morning. Regarding the parking, we wanted to clarify that in the previously approved BSA plans, it says parking for 8 cars. However, the area designated for parking is only 50 feet. So if you have 8.5 feet parking spaces, you can really only fit 6 cars there.
Okay, it's the same space we are putting in 4 cars, handicap and the garbage can there, but it's the same space. If 8 cannot fit there, it was shown wrong. So we are trying to fit as much as we can. So it was 6 cars to begin with, 6 cars we have.
okay. Understood, thank you.
Next.
And then regarding the planting, we can do a 3-foot planting strip along that concrete wall, as well as behind the dumpster in that 10-foot area.
The big ones cannot survive there.
Can you
They
move
have to go
closer?
far away.
Sorry. Can you move closer to the speaker? I really can't hear what you're saying.
Let me take out my mask so I feel a little bit, okay. So if we plant big plants, they will not survive there. We have to go smaller plants because on the other job, we planted evergreens and all of them died. So because they don't survive next to the wall.
On the other job, how big was your planting bed?
The planting bed was 3 feet, but next to the wall, always these evergreens don't like next to something. They want to have an open space. So smaller plants will work. The bigger plant evergreen will die. So that is my problem.
No, so you need to go speak with a landscaper because you see evergreen trees growing up against walls almost everywhere in the world. And the issue is that the planting bed at 3 feet is not enough, not enough front to back depth, and there's not enough root ball depth. So you need to work with a landscaper and get them to specify the type of tree. And when we say a tree, we mean something that's dense shrubs. Like arbor vitae is what we usually talk about because it's the easiest one to remember, but it's not the only thing. There's cypress, there's a lot of things that you can plant densely, but you can't use just a 3-foot planting bed. You're not giving the trees a chance to actually flourish and to grow tall. So it's not going to do us any good to see a couple of little shrubs. It's not accomplishing anything. but we've seen success in other locations, and I can find many photographs of trees growing up against walls all over the planet. So
Okay,
you
well,
need to not be the landscape designer yourselves. You
yeah,
need
then I'm not.
to go to a specialist. I know, so it's a specialty. I used to have to do it myself too, and all the trees I spec'd also died until we went to a landscape architect who knew how to do it.
It happened to me in my home also, same thing, all of them died.
There
So
you
that's
go.
right. Okay. All right, but the problem is that we don't have much space here. Even if I do 4 feet, I move the cars back, which is going to be, interfering with my driveway. So I don't have much space. I may go up to 3 feet or so.
No, so 4 feet or they don't work, and you need to work out your layout. And isn't this where we said that I always get all these sites confused, where maybe the curb cut isn't necessary, that's right there?
The old curb cut was 18 feet.
So you have a really, really wide curb cut there, which was not approved to be that wide, right?
So I look at the old approved drawings, so they have 18 feet curb cut existing. So we will go back to 18. That's no problem with us.
Okay, good. And that should give you more room to pull the parking back.
Yeah, sure.
When you have the planting, you must have wheel stops so that the cars don't overhang into the planting.
That's no problem. I might skew the parking a little bit to get a 4 feet thingy in there. So we have easy planting. Some on the corner where I have more than 4 feet, I can have the plants there, I'll arrange that. No, I'll talk to our expert here.
Okay. Okay, great.
So if I am cutting this curb cut, I have another curb cut on Cooper Avenue, which was approved to be 30 feet by the convenience store. Can I bring that back to what it was approved, 30 feet as an old drawing? So that will help me ingress and egress for the cars. The old curb cut,
yeah,
we want to change back to 30 feet because on Cooper Avenue, it helps me ingress and egress for the cars on next to the store.
Commissioners, any opinions on that?
Excuse me, what you said?
I'm asking the commissioners whether they have opinions on that 30-foot curb cut on Cooper.
So there are 2 curb cuts on Cooper Avenue, one right at the intersection, and there another one that is further away along the building. Which one are you proposing to widen to 30 feet?
The one which is close to the building. Currently, it is about 20 feet, but it was approved in old BSA as a 30 feet. So I want to bring back to 30 feet. That will help me with the car ingress and egress.
I'm looking at the submitted plan that shows 2 12-foot curb cuts. I don't see one that shows a 30-foot.
Okay,
so one that was submitted shows 2 12-foot curb cuts that is closest to the building, and then 2 curb cuts closer to the intersection, one 14 feet and one 15 feet. Am I looking at the wrong drawings?
Yes, you can look at another drawing. There is another drawing that has.
Oh, okay. I see the next one. The next one, which says 30 feet and then 14 and 15.
Yes, 14 and 15 combined to one. That is fine already. But the one we have right now, we have a smaller, like 20 feet. I forgot to mention the dimension, but I want to bring that back to 30 feet. So that will help me to move the cars out.
Sorry, which drawing are you looking at? The original approval or something else?
Original approval.
Ah, okay.
It's page, it would be page 4.
Of the original approval.
Yeah.
That was submitted on August 5th or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It
So
says plot plan of existing and proposed.
Got 12, 12, 14, 15 on Cooper. Right? So you're suggesting the one that's 12, 12 is right in front of the building.
That's right.
So that wouldn't do you any good, right? And then you have 14, 15 that's closer to the intersection. Which one are you talking about?
So there's another sheet that has a 30 feet. 12, 12 is equal to 30. There's another sheet next to it, old sheet.
After, oh.
It would be page 4. It would be 4 of the 6 pages that were submitted.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Oh, that was the existing conditions. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was,
What would be the gap between then, the distance between the 30-foot curb cut and the existing curb cut at the intersection of Cooper and 73rd?
20 feet. We measured on the AutoCAD, it comes out to be 20 feet. More than 18 should be okay.
So there would be a gap of 20 feet between those 2 curb cuts?
That is right, yeah.
Okay.
We just
really?
checked on AutoCAD, so.
So,
Because if you realize the same,
you need to
if
do
you realize the same sketch 14, 15 is also cut down to 30 feet. It's smaller.
Yeah. So the double curb cut that was supposed to be 14, 6, and 15, if we're scaling on the drawings, or not scaling, just using that as your measure, you don't even have 14 feet between the 30-foot curb cut and the 14-foot 6 curb cut. I'm looking at that page 4 on the originally approved drawings.
Yeah, actually,
On to scale.
yeah, if they combine together and just move towards the corner a little bit. So when we did the field work and the survey and the latest measurement on the CAD, it comes out to close to 20 feet. Code asks for 18 between the curb cut. I think we go with it.
Okay. So how about this? Can you mark minimum when you do your revised drawing?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll put it in. We
Mark
put in both the
also-
curb cut 30 feet and the
No,
one, and we put 18 to more,
Yeah.
whatever comes out, close to 20.
no, it's not whatever comes out. There's a DOT rule that says curb cuts cannot be closer than X. So you have to write that it is a minimum of whatever that is. If it's 18 feet, a minimum of 18 feet to be retained pursuant to section whatever of the building code or DOT or whatever, because that's the critical dimension.
Okay.
It's not whatever happens, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we will put it in exactly what the code says.
Okay.
I want to add one more factor, and I don't know if DOT would allow it. There was a street tree right at the intersection of 73rd and Cooper on 73rd. And when I'm looking at the street view from older ones to the later ones, somewhere along in 2014 or 2018, actually, it was cut down. So I think that needs to be replaced since that's still a tree pit, right?
Yes.
No, but so that's the point. If you go to Street View and you watch those 2 people crossing the street, one person with a cane, they are squishing their bodies between the light pole and that tree pit. And so, because there's kind of no place for a pedestrian to stand. So I think that DOT wouldn't want, because there's no space between the light pole and the first curb cut.
Okay, all right, I take that back.
I agree that it's great to have street trees, but it doesn't look like there's any room for it.
My only concern when I'm looking at the street view along Cooper Avenue is the current curb cut is exactly aligned right along starts from the edge of the building and then spans towards the intersection. And if we widen it to 30 feet, though technically there would be 20 feet, it seems, my fear is that that entire curb cut would start looking like a one large curb cut with very little space that would enable a pedestrian to walk comfortably and minimize the conflict. So I'm just little torn by that. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you can provide a little bit more clear maneuverability plan and to help me get over that, that would be helpful. That would be good.
We'll do that. No problem.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? When I'm looking at the Cooper Avenue street view, already the curb cut is starting right from the edge of the building and it's going towards the intersection. The space between that and the next curb cut is not that much. If we are going to widen it even more, it's almost going to look like one large curb cut. And you need to figure out a way to prevent that from happening, whether that's providing some streetscape improvement between that intersection that absolutely makes clear that vehicles will not then just use what is not a curb cut, also a curb cut or a maneuverability lane for them to get to another pump.
Like we just talked about it.
That's my concern.
We just talked about it, 30 feet. There will be space in between. It's going to be 18 or more. We will mention on the drawing as per DOT rule, minimum curb cut distance, either 5 feet or 18 feet. So 18 feet, a car can park on the Cooper Avenue if they want to. And then the next curb cut will be by the corner. So what we will do, we will adjust. 30 is not the firm number. If for whatever reason we need to put 28, I'll go with 28. But we will maintain 18 feet between the curb cut to comply with the DOT requirements.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, the issue is really, you know, a pedestrian is walking down the sidewalk and a car comes up the curb, right? Curb cut. Where does a pedestrian stand when it's surrounded on two sides by cars coming and going on the curb? And if it's a successful business, that's happening all day long. So how do you walk on this, right?
Right.
That's what the issue is. Okay. All right.
And I don't know if that space between the two curb cuts would qualify for a street tree by DOT street planting requirement.
25 feet they are looking for between the.
So it may qualify. So you may want to ask for a street tree planting between those two curb cuts. That would further disenable a vehicle from using that portion of the sidewalk as a maneuverability lane.
We'll talk to street tree people. If they allow us within 20 feet, we'll put that one in.
Okay.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you.
Like to do that. Yeah.
Looks like there might have been one before. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, you mentioned a lighting study, and I just wanted to make sure I understood the lighting study that the other applicant had done. So they measured the light levels with all the lights of the site turned off, and then they went back, turned the lights back on, and they measured it again to see that the change in the ambient, in the change in lighting.
Right. And that way you can check who's shedding light that you're getting blamed for high light levels at the property line, but actually it's somebody else's light. That's a great way to check. And what they did, and our project manager can share a copy of that really well done analysis. They laid a grid on top of the site pursuant to our administrative notice. It actually says lay a grid at certain intervals and so on. And then they showed us the little measuring stick that they used to show that they measured 3 feet off the ground and so on. It was really very systematically done. And it gave a really clear indication of what the lumen situation is on that site. So yes. So, but in your case, what we're really looking for is zero light at the property line shared with the residents, right? So that's the main thing that you need to measure.
What we will do, we will go back again after sunset, and we will make sure we shut all the lights and we see what levels we get there at the property line by the wall. And we will update you how maybe this coming from next door across the street, I guess. Maybe we'll figure it out. We'll let you know that. Sure.
Or even the street light.
Street light. Yeah, it's actually there's no street light next to it, but that's on the corner. But there should be some effect. But we don't have a canopy yet, so let's see. We will check it out for you. No problem.
Okay. And Tracy Benke has her hand up, and I see Commissioner Sheta. You're muted. You're muted, Tracy.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to had a question about reaching out to DOT. Are we reaching out to them to make them aware of this project in case they want to do improvements to the intersection, or are we asking for a review of the site plan that's going to be?
No, we're only asking them because I'm a concerned citizen and worried about people getting hit by cars who can't go into a crosswalk the right way. It doesn't have anything to do with this project. It's just
okay. Thank you.
It's in terms of your zero, whatever it's called.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I would say because the lumen issue in this case is probably pretty simple, I would say the step one is go there, not 2 feet into your lot at the property line and measure. And if you get 0, you're done. We don't need more than that. But if you do not, then you try to prove it to us that whatever is exceeding 0, and I would believe that it's gonna be like minimal. It's not from your lights, because I can see that the only light from your property is the one next to the price sign. And I feel like the sign is shielding, because the 2 lights are like right and left on the sign, and the sign is kind of shielding that light to go back. So do this, and if you get 0, you're good to go, lighting wise. But if you do not, then like try to follow what is in the administrative notice.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments that you wanted to make?
Regarding the food mart, so the store is a convenience. It is called Food Mart, but it's a convenience store. They don't sell. They don't have a deli. They don't sell vegetables or any perishables aside from milk and eggs. It's mostly snack foods and drinks. And I think the dumpster, we can. We'll make sure that it'll fit, but I think we can rotate it 90 degrees, so that way and rotate the doors 90 degrees, so that way it's harder to see from the neighboring residents. And then the handicapped, the pedestrian travel pathway, we'll show that on the plans, where it'll be basically parallel to Cooper Avenue. It'll go from the front entrance of the store to the handicap parking spot.
We'll mark it on the diagonal.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any last minute comments before we go to the public? Okay, so I'd like to then, I don't know if Chase is managing this part. Can you show the public screen? And I'd like to invite members of the public, thank you, to call in to participate in this case.
58, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
5830 BZ, 7313 Cooper Avenue, Queens.
Right, and the dial-in number is 646-558-8656 to participate. And when you, on the prompt, ID number 947-5445-4287. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so I'd just like to know how much time you need to prepare these revised drawings.
As soon as, we have no problem. It's very simple. We
Well,
just,
we just have to do the light number.
just with the light number, we can do 2 weeks is enough for us.
Okay. So we can't necessarily accommodate a 2-week submit, but keep that in mind to try to squeeze you into a calendar that has some room. We have some very tight calendars in the next few weeks. Okay. All right then. Do we see anybody who called in? Sorry, just a second. Where's the participants? Do we know who those 2 phone numbers are? Chase, the ones that end in 211 and 278? Chase?
They're not registered, so I'll admit them and allow them to talk right now.
Okay, okay. And then we can identify them. So when you can hear us, phone number 2 that ends in 211 with first 3 digits 347, can you identify yourself and tell us what case you're calling about?
Hello?
Phone number 211. Phone number 211, please unmute yourself, turn off your YouTube video and identify yourself. There, you just unmuted yourself. Do that again.
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, state your name, please.
Yes, my name is Joseph Sweeney. I'm committee chair of on Community Board 7 in reference to BSA calendar 1624503BZ. It's in McDonald's, and it's located in Queens.
Okay, that's not the case we're discussing right now.
That is
Correct.
for the Willits Point. We are not here for, we are right now listening to another case.
Well,
Is that
but
going to
now
come up today, the Willits Point?
it is. It's just later on. We'll let you speak when we're up to that case, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna mute you again, and then we'll call you when we're up to that case, okay? And then the person who is last three digits, 278, 516 area code, could you identify yourself, please? (516), last three digits, 278. Please identify yourself and turn off your YouTube video.
The case that we're discussing right now is 5830BZ, 7313 Cooper Avenue, Queens. If that is not the case that you are calling about, please hang up.
Okay. I don't know what to do with 516, last three digits, 278.
That's Mr. Costa.
It is, but he also is calling in on another number. He has two entries. Mr. Costa,
I'm
is that
gonna,
your number?
since he already spoke on his application.
No, I know. I'm trying. Yeah, I just want to verify that it's Mr. Costa. Okay. All right. We just need to move on. I can't. Okay. So then I would like to then move on to the next case. So thank you for calling in and for participating in the hearing, and we'll try to set you up for a soon hearing as soon as we can. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
82586BZ, 1703 Bronxdale Avenue, the Bronx. That should be Ackerman and Kevin Williams, Lisa Rantia, and Barbara Cohen, I believe.
Here I am.
Right?
Okay.
And Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay.
State your name.
There?
You are there. I see them all.
Okay, raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
Proceed, Ms. Arantia.
Good afternoon, Lisa Orantia for the applicant from Ackerman LLP. I listened to the comments earlier today, and I understand the board has two sets of comments. One about the parking study, which it was submitted to support the request to legalize the existing 65 spaces. And that would be a reduction from what the prior grant required, which was a minimum of 75 spaces for the maximum occupancy of 850. So we're asking for an increase of 250 people plus this reduction to legalize the existing parking. And Kevin Williams is attending today, and I believe he's in a good position to respond to the board's comments earlier today. So I want to turn it over to him on specifics, but I just want to make a few quick statements about the comments. Just to confirm, the study was done in June of 2019. And the analysis considered the proposed maximum occupancy, and it included field observations, which were conducted on days that were selected to be able to observe the demand on the parking lot in situations where you would have the banquet hall in use, and it would coincide with days of maximum on-street demand, so that the field observations would take place when you would have a worst case scenario of demand on the lot. And just a couple more comments. There was a suggestion to use stackers. The concern there is that stackers might cause some queuing in the street. And the study shows that the parking lot does provide adequate parking spaces for the proposed maximum occupancy. To the extent there is additional demand that needs to be satisfied, it would be achieved better by a distribution rather than providing stacking, which could cause this congestion. There is, on those days that there were the field observations, there were unused spaces in the accessory lot, there were available spaces on street, and then within a 5-minute walking distance, there is a public parking lot that also has available spaces in it. And then the second comment was regarding the financial study, whether soft costs should be included, and Barbara Cohen is here to answer that. But first, I'd like to have Kevin Williams discuss his findings and answer your specific questions.
Hello, this is Kevin Williams from Equity Environmental. I will start with the chair's comments, and I think several commissioners had some interrelated comments. So the first point, I'll just go point by point in which I heard the remarks. So that offsite parking lot, the accessory parking lot across the street isn't used much. So that's just the observation, not a blanket statement in the document. So we went out and observed the operations. We do our parking demand studies on multiple levels. One, we do it mathematically using factors from EISs and other environmental assessments, particularly as it relates to catering halls, which is a unique facility. And we do it from a max capacity standpoint, not what we observe the utilization would be, not a percentage of the utilization. So that's all in the report. But absolutely, Chair, when we went and observed on Thursday and on Saturday, we were it was running about 50 to 60% occupied. Now, I asked the attendant at the lot who valets, is this the normal case? And he's like, it varies. Sometimes it's absolutely is fully occupied, which is the anecdotal information that you got. And I'm sure that's the case if the building's, 900 plus occupied. My demand study shows that it would outstrip that parking lot. And so now I want to reiterate what Ms. Arancha said, that the purpose of going out on a Thursday is that the DOT generally only accepts traffic related analyses on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because that represents a maximum utilization of both parking and in terms of evaluating traffic. So the idea was we use that worst case condition Thursday, and I identified with the client at Maestro's, give me and my staff 2 good days where you have heavy bookings in the proximate future. She gave me this Thursday and a Saturday. But having said that, no way in our analysis is factored in. We did not use the observational occupancy of the building at that time as the basis of our traffic study, because it only represents one possible scenario. The purpose was to go out and analyze the available on-street parking spaces and other parking resources in the area, and the very detailed walk around for the quarter mile that's on the Friday and Saturday in our study shows the available parking spaces from 5 to 7 o'clock, when your first generation of individuals will be coming in and parking at the location. And then also there's a school across the street and a lot of schools in the area that use a lot of the parking, and you see this sort of transition in the way the neighborhood works. So I wanted just to let you know that in terms of the demand study, that was all about on-street parking. And of course, we want to make sure that our transportation model related to parking is not understating reality when we go out there, and like that it's not worse than what we would expect. So, and we also wanted to see how the curb performed and that sort of thing in terms of drop-offs. So I just wanted to kind of couch the study in the correct light. And I understand, nobody really wants to read every word of a parking study. It's like the most dry thing possible, and it's been submitted for many months. So I understand the interpretive differences. So in terms of that, then we used, in terms of kind of responding to, I think, Commissioner Sabetta and Commissioner Shetta's concerns that the parking study did not analyze a max demand scenario. It did. It analyzed a scenario with 1,008 spaces and used the Silver Cup FEIS, the McDonald, EAS, which is a more recent catering study in a similar neighborhood that has family-oriented and similar sort of travel demands rather than the sort of very macro look that an EIS would take. So we took basically the characteristics that are the worst case characteristics, 92% drive rate associated with people that use this catering facility. And just so you know, the owners told us that a lot less than that. There's more walking and transit use, but I sort of discounted that and I went with the generic factors. So we plugged in a very high drive rate, and then we looked at how people sort of would come there and compared them and came up with a car occupancy rate. Now there are a lot of, like, I don't call them party vans, but sort of vans that you see in weddings come with 16 and 10 people here. So when you blend single passenger autos with those, we took that basically an average of 3 people per car on that 1,000 total and came up with basically a maximum demand scenario. So I hope that kind of explains some of the background on the study. I'm happy to go through any more details. And I guess the last point was just to kind of discuss what Lisa had mentioned, even though it wasn't the purview of our study, you know, offline after the session. I mean, I definitely like the use of stackers where feasible. And I think potentially here there is an opportunity to do that in terms of the, you know, given that you have a valet operation. But I am concerned that the time that it takes for cars to go in a stacker, particularly at 3 high, to triple the capacity of the lot, may lead to some queuing. And so the primary reason why we looked at other resources is literally a short walk down the street, less than 5 minutes. There's a garage, a rooftop garage above New York City Sports Club that's about 150 spaces. And after 5 o'clock, it's basically empty. You know, and I think one of the major things is perhaps Maestro's is just not directing folks to that opportunity. And it's $5 for 3 hours. So it's not super costly. But having said that, you know, people do take a walk 5 to 7.5 minutes, a quarter of a mile. There actually is quite a lot of parking available in the neighborhood. But I think, as is normal with humans, you know, people going to an event, you want to get as close as you possibly can. And so people are seeing that, yeah, it's congested, you know, on the primary blocks around the site. But if you go a little bit farther, it becomes there becomes much more parking available.
I guess, so you talked about stackers. I wasn't thinking of stackers because they're unsightly, and I do see Commissioner Shanda and Commissioner Hotley Brown's hands up. You talk about triple stackers. I actually wasn't thinking of triple. I was thinking of double stackers, which, and by the way, you know, it's so confusing with these sort of studies. Sometimes the argument is, oh, the stackers are so fast, we're in and out, it takes 10 seconds to do a throughput and all of that. And then other times, oh, it's complicated, it's going to create a lineup, all that stuff. So which is it?
Yeah, Chair, I really appreciate that question. I think a lot of it has to do to how many people come at once. But the fact is, I mean, we've all done in a stacker. It takes 30 seconds for that thing to go to the top and then come down, and you got to put it in, you know. So it's possible if you had a bunch of people coming at once that it could lead to a queue, but I can't say with certainty. It's just a consideration, you know, to throw into the mix. And I don't have an answer for you on that, but it's definitely not a couple of seconds. I mean, for my own professional opinion, but you know, that sort of thing can easily be evaluated.
But you'd have the same thing where they said they have 2 devoted valet parkers during an event. So if 20 people show up to park in the valet parking, you would have the same lineup, right? But
no. Well, it depends on how you arrange the parking, right? If you're able to pull in, you know, to a stopping point, you know, and then the car gets, so you'd certainly have to, and I would think that a business such as Maestro's has been in business a long time would certainly know how to stem that flow. But I would imagine for some people coming here the first time, they pull up in front of the building, they're not sure where to go. And there's probably valet, actually there is valet there where you can pick your car up there, and there's valet across the street where people that know the site can pull in. And, you know, there's means and methods which the operator can do to stem sort of on-street confusion, social media apps, advance notice in terms of invites and that sort of thing. So I think there's a combination of good best practices, right, that would prevent a queue in a lot of ways. I just think you run the risk of a queue if you have a lot of people coming. It's just one thing to consider. I'm not saying that that's not part of the solution. Obviously, that's part of the financial considerations of the operation. But in terms of just looking at the base availability of parking, it does exist in the area. In terms of expanding on site, that's something that the board, would have to consider, and the applicant would weigh in. That's not something that we looked at, but that's certainly a solution.
Understood. Okay, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Shanda had her hand up first, and then Commissioner Otley Brown.
Thank you. I had two questions. One, you said that the school parking uses on-street parking. On weekends, that's not the case. So it's only affecting events that are happening on weekdays. And generally the school parking, I'm assuming it would be teachers and not necessarily the parents. It's right. Are you referring to the teacher parking? Is there a sign that says no parking for teachers only? Or school
Commissioner
only?
Shanda, the only reason why I mentioned that, it's just it's part of the observational, sort of evaluation of the area. In terms of maestros, most of their events don't take place until after 5. And by then the school has cleared out. And, we do schools, as you guys know. And so I made a point to get there early to watch how the very large public school operated on that street. And then I observed how it cleared out. So I think anecdotally, it's not an important factor, because that on-street parking, in whatever sense that it serves the schools that are in the area, is basically gone by 5 o'clock. So that's what you see as it really sort of empties out. And there's a lot of availability of parking during the time in which the catering facility works. And then you can see even more, there's more, based on our assessment, there's even more parking available on a Saturday, than the Thursday day that we looked at, which is normal from a traffic ops perspective. But I definitely think it's part of, schools staff using spaces. Yes, not really that important in terms of information regarding the parking study. It's just why there tended to be less than I actually thought it would be fuller than it was. And I personally did the walk around myself.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown.
Yes. If you have a Thursday night demand of 155 cars and a weekend demand of 201 cars, and you're only providing 65 cars, why are you relying on the visitors to the site to resolve your parking shortfall? I know that you say that there's available rooftop parking nearby by the New York Sports Club, but if you seriously want us to consider this application, perhaps you should be giving us a proposal for how you are going to engage the owners of the New York Sports Club site in order to reserve spaces there, and then extend your valet operation to take the cars that won't fit into the lot across the street, take them over to the New York Sports Club lot and park them there, so that you're not relying on the customers to resolve your problem for you, because that's not likely to happen. It's more likely that people are going to clog the immediate neighborhood with cars rather than walk from a few blocks away from a rooftop parking garage when you're dressed in your finest. It's just not likely to happen.
Commissioner Brown, so I think that's a very insightful point. So the one comment I would make on it's not actually New York Sports Club, it's a shared parking facility that's paid. So you can actually just enter it. Having said that, I don't think it's a bad idea, as you noted, to work some arrangement there so that the valet for overflow is not having people searching through the neighborhood. And if that is, certainly I think it would be beneficial to the private parking operation, or private but publicly accessible parking operation, for them to make revenue potentially off of the off-peak use of that parking deck. So I take that comment very reasonably. And yes, people, they might not even know, as as I noted earlier, that that's an option, right? So in terms of preventing people from sort of, doing the unnecessary wandering through the neighborhood, which if you're trying to get to an event can be quite annoying for the user, but also, cause unnecessary, traffic movements through neighborhoods. I think that, there would be better policy, as you indicated, by sort of making a more formal reach out to them. So that's possible. I don't want to speak too much for the applicant because this hasn't been something that we discussed. And the fact is, the increment of parking here, all things be considered, is relatively minor in terms of the existing operations, and the board already approved, the existing operations and the size of the facilities as it stand. And we're basically looking at about, 60 additional cars. So
no, actually, the board approved 75 spaces and only 65 were provided.
I get that, but what we're doing is we're revisiting the demand from the facility, on its whole, and basically the expansion represents 10% of the whole. Right?
No, actually, we're not revisiting the entirety. We're revisiting what zoning requires of the expansion of the 150 increased demand. When you're talking about increased occupancy. So because you measure in a C11 the rated occupancy, that's how we get to the additional 45 spaces, because it's a very low ratio.
Understood, but I'm saying when I did my parking study, the details of the plan and expansion, actually our case here is a worse case, because they're going to convert, space to an office and expand the facility and that sort of thing. But so whatever the facts are, I agree, Chair and Commissioner Brown, that, exploring the available options and stronger ties to handle the capacity of the entire building is best practice. So I don't disagree with either one of your points.
So, and I just want to say that my experience with going to places that have valet parking, there's like a little kiosk in front of the event space, because, ladies in their high heels, they can barely walk a block in those things, right? And so it's a fact, right?
Yeah.
And so and on broken sidewalks, et cetera, it's not a joke. So you want to be left off right in front of the event place. And then the valet is supposed to take the car and drive it to the place, which is actually what we were told happens on 600 McDonald Avenue.
Right.
So in that case, then the valet would be driving it to that other location where they've made a deal.
Right. And I think they do have that in front of the building. It's just people do what they do. And so I think there just need to be stronger measures, as you, and I mean, this is kind of the case in every type of study that we do of this type. We're told to take humans as they are, but obviously the catering facility, in terms of giving directions and ones that help them get there and find parking in a safe, off-site location is certainly a best practice. So yeah, I mean, I think we have solutions. We just need to tighten up the approach and come back to the board with that. But in terms of parking, though, there is capacity on the existing on-street, and I think the question in terms of the board's favoring a specific option is we will look at providing, exactly as you suggested, a more direct valet option to this offsite resource.
So what I would suggest is, because in reading your report, what shocked me the most was what the demand actually is, where you would need really a huge amount of on-street parking spaces to meet the demand based on your analysis, right? Because all we can do is go on your analysis. So a total parking demand of 155 spaces would be required during the weekday peak hours and 201 spaces during the Saturday peak hours. So clearly the 65 space lot is well under demand. And normally we say, maybe we'll give you a reduction in parking, but the least you can do is meet demand, right? But when demand exceeds what zoning requires, then we say, well, what does zoning require? And in this case, you've got a pre-existing non-conforming site that did or didn't have a parking requirement, but when it went to the BSA, it got a 75 space requirement. And then it's from the application materials that say there's an increased occupancy level of 150, you know, wherever that came from. So we just 150 and divide by the number to get what the number of spaces, right?
So my concern here is that we're trying to serve two proofs. And what I do when I give a conservative analysis is I'm like, okay, what if this thing is like DEFCON 5, right? It's the worst of the worst, 92% drive. And you know, the easiest way to evaluate this with any level of veracity is to simply go with the stats and not open up to the testimony of the owner, not observe, you know, operations that are hectic in the field. But the fact is that if you want me to fit this in accordance with some variance, you know, that takes a lot more consideration. If the standard here, you know, generally the seeker standard for impact is, you know, it's different from the board's considerations here, is that, you know, if as long as there's available parking in the area and you're not diminishing the capacity or overcapacity, it's not considered a significant impact. So my concern here is I do not want to overburden the applicant, you know, with anything that, you know, is not then based on very specific human behavior. So, you know, I would ask the board in such a study, you know, in terms of, you know, right sizing it, you know, we need to have some leeway above an absolutely unlikely scenario that shows that there's available parking capacity, you know, on street that's publicly available, as well as off-street options where you pay, and something that encumbers the applicant with the unnecessary burden of that conservative situation. So I'm a bit concerned because the approach here was just to identify, you know, you've had this existing operation going on for 20 some years. We're adding a small increment. Let's go ahead and show that the neighborhood has capacity. If it does not, then you need to really consider about adding stackers or entering into agreements with offsite locations. But here, you know, there's publicly available parking. So this is the type of study that was done, is like a worst case condition, and then to look at the worst case parking day and to see if parking is available. And so I'm sort of at, you know, I'm in a catch-22 here in terms of matching, you know, encumbering the applicant and kind of meeting, you know, the interpretation that you have, Chair.
So I see Commissioner Otley Brown's hand up. Just one second. But my point is, for example, if this was an as of right use in a district where this use group 9 banquet facility were allowed, and they wanted to expand and increase their occupancy, the zoning resolution would require them to find 45 spaces. And there's no waivers available for these 45 spaces like there is for an office, for example, right? So they'd have to go ahead and find 45 spaces, and the solution would be put it on the lot they already have, which complies with the zoning. And how would they do it? They put stackers, right? Because that's actually the only way that they would comply, because making a deal with somebody 2 blocks away doesn't meet the requirements. So the question is, why should they be treated in a way that's different? And then it also increases the degree of the minimum variance. And there was a minimum variance before, and however the board came to the conclusion of 75 spaces, it did that. But, and that number hasn't even been complied with over all of these years. So we factor all those things in. Commissioner Otley Brown. Oops.
I just wanted to add that the whole intent of parking requirement is that you don't shift your burden onto the neighborhood. It's so that you're not disrupting the flow of the neighborhood. And so therefore, I think that any study that you do should not just identify the available spaces on the street, but also come up with some kind of a resolution to the issue of having a shortfall in what you're providing based on your demand. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
So to both Chair and Commissioner Brown, yeah, I mean, this, I'm not going to say this wasn't in the ambit of my study, but it wasn't. So I think, but I do think this notion of 45 cars and as you say, matching it to an as-of-right scenario, I mean, that I think that's a reasonable interpretation. I have nothing to add to that. And in terms, in terms of, I think this neighborhood impact notion, you know, this is, you know, not a finding that I have here. I wasn't given any findings to meet other than to evaluate, and I don't think we're, you know, this is not a parking waiver case. So, but yes, it is de facto, right, Chair? I think it sort of comes to that. And so I think the question here at the end of the day is either we try to right size the parking study in the time of COVID, or we, you know, use this standard of as of right in another location. So I mean, I don't want to speak for council, but that's kind of what I hear you stating.
And I think that, by the way, to not drag this on like so many cases get dragged on, that would be the most direct way of answering our concern, because we don't really seem to have a problem with the idea of their increasing the capacity, but I'll leave that to Commissioner Otley-Brown and Ms. Cohen to work out the sort of details. But what we do have a problem with is the parking, and knowing how these banquet facilities actually function and how they really, really clog up the neighborhood at arrival times and departure times when they all happen at once, and depending on how popular the person is who's having the event, right? Some people don't have a lot of people who come to their parties, and some have everybody in the neighborhood or even in the city come. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Otley-Brown, did you want to add anything? No, okay. So did you want Ms. Cohen to speak?
Sure, but as I said before, I feel like they have definitely shown that they can't make it work with what was pre-existing, even without the soft costs included. And so the question is, do they just want to clean up the report and pull it out or not? And in any case, I'm going to say they met the finding.
Okay. All right. So you heard that instruction. Rather than drag this on, I would like to go to the public, to anybody from the public who would like to speak on this case. Tony, can you read the case name number?
The case we're discussing is 825-86 BZ, 1703 Bronxdale Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, and please call in to 646-558-8656. And when you hear the tone, 947-5445-4287 #. Okay, so, and while we wait to see if anyone is interested in calling in, let me just see if there's any participants who are, nobody is in the waiting room or anything that looks like they're related to this, unless, is Nicholas Alexiadis one of the applicants? I think so, right?
Nick is registered.
He's registered as one of the applicant representatives?
Yes, for 24503 BZ.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'd like to, do you have, Ms. Arantia, do you have anything else you want to add? And otherwise, how much time do your collective group need to respond?
Yes, I would like at least 3 weeks, I would say, to discuss the board's comments about parking with the applicant and see what kind of operational changes we can make to you know, ensure that there's adequate parking and that information is conveyed about the additional parking lot, and see if there's an ability for the valet parking to provide this to the clients more directly.
Okay, so to be clear, I think oops, what just happened? Sorry, for some reason my computer wants me to update now. Mr. Williams actually, I think, got it, but we're talking about a combination of increased parking on the lot that's under the control of the owner, and then to the extent that there's a shortfall because it doesn't fit properly or something, to allow for adequate reservoir or queuing, then maybe you would be looking at some sort of arrangement with an off-site space. But understand, and also ultimately a restrictive declaration to bind all of those locations and that are owned by the owner, and a representation by the owner that that kind of operation will continue in perpetuity for the length of this operation, right? So we would need that. Okay, I don't think 3 weeks is actually enough for this. So I'm just gonna make in my notes that you need 5 weeks. Okay.
Okay. All right, it's 1:31. Are we breaking?
So let me just, because I don't want to mess up all the hearing schedules, what I would like to do, and not sure if we don't have a lot of people waiting in the waiting room, and the applicants for the subsequent cases on this morning calendar need to be contacted by our project managers. But what we're going to do, and apologies, but there was a collapse in the Zoom and YouTube video connection, not just with the BSA, but throughout the East Coast and some of the South this morning, and we were not able to begin the hearings until 11. So we're behind by at least an hour in terms of our hearings. So what we're going to do is we're going to, at 2 p.m., switch to the 2 p.m. session, which requires a different dial-in number. And we're going to go through the 2 p.m. session, which may finish early. And if we are able to finish early enough, we'll pick up the morning cases to the extent that we can until some reasonable, not too late hour. And if we didn't get to all of them, then we'll have to pick those up again tomorrow. Okay, so please, project managers, please let your applicants know that what the dial-in information is, and for the public who is listening, who wants to participate in public testimony on any of the morning cases, you can go to our website, which is nyc/bsa.gov, and you'll see the link to the afternoon session, and you can click on that link and be permitted in to give testimony. Is that right?
Madam Chair, would it be helpful if we just identify the items that we are leaving on the table for now, and that we may capture if people want to know if we have heard them or not, if they go to the videotape and listen?
Sure.
So the two cases that we're going to move to this afternoon, if possible, is that what you want to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the two cases that we've heard in review session now for public hearing will move to the afternoon session after our regular 2 p.m. session, if we can accommodate, is 5597 BZ, 7636 164th Street, Queens, and 24503 BZ, 160-11 Willets Point Boulevard, Queens. Those two cases might be heard in the afternoon after the regular 2 p.m. session.
And apologies to Mr. Sweeney, who I know called in for this. And I see Ms. Prenga's hand up, so go ahead, Jella.
Do those two applicants need to register for 2 p.m.?
Okay, so the applicants for those two cases, you need to register for the 2 p.m. session. And maybe I'm going to read the dial-in information for anyone who's listening who might want to give testimony in the afternoon. So the call-in number in the afternoon is the same as it was for the morning. It's 646-558-8656, but the meeting ID number is different. So it's, everybody ready with a pen? 976-9265-68 6833. That's the meeting ID number for this afternoon. 976-9265-6833. But you can also find that on our website when you go to nyc.gov/BSA. You'll see on our homepage the link to the video, and that'll put you on for the right information for the 2 o'clock session. Okay, thank you, everyone. Sorry about all of this. Luckily, we have good support in the tech department, great support in the tech department. And so I want to say we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Eat fast.
Okay.
Hi.
Tony, you want to conclude?
Marjorie.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
still
done
there?
this morning.
This
So-
morning, I lost you. I don't even know where you are. Let me find you. There you are. But we're still live on YouTube. So you actually do need to hang up because we're being recorded and everyone can see
I'm
you.
going to hang up. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, bye-bye.
Great that you joined. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
So end this one, right, Marjorie?
Yes, yes, thank you, Steve. And this one.